Folks, I have done a lot of videos as far as some bad police officers, and I normally try to keep an open mind as far as some situations are concerned, not all, but there are some situations that just basically scream blue murder, that not only is the police officer responsible and liable for doing something wrong, but the police department should be held liable for even accepting some of these people and giving them a badge and a gun. Now, last year, this particular police officer, his name is Katherine Ayala, was called to the scene where we'll call a mentally challenged person was creating an issue. Not a deadly issue, not an issue where anybody was in any type of danger of physical harm, just an issue to help, excuse me, a caregiver to get a mentally challenged person under control. So obviously the Florida Police Department, North Miami, Florida Police Department to be exact, were called to the scene, and there was some question as to exactly what was going on. Now, the mentally challenged person had an object in his hand, and one of the police officers was trying to make it seem like he had a deadly weapon. Well, the caregiver was yelling to the police that the person had a toy in his hand. But one of the officers, I guess, didn't believe him and attempted to shoot the mentally challenged person. Well, this guy was such a bad shot that not only did he miss the mentally challenged person, he hit the caregiver who had his hands in the air and was yelling that the object in the challenged person's hand was a toy. Okay, well, the officer, upon being interviewed, basically said that he was in fear for his life, which is what they always say, because he thought that the mentally challenged person had a gun in his hand. Okay. I guess he didn't believe the caregiver. But now here's the twist. When the other officers were on the scene along with him, now this was at the same time, and there was a sergeant that was on the scene with binoculars, and he clearly saw that the mentally challenged person had a toy in his hand, and he yelled out to the other officers, of which Mr. Ayala was one, not to fire, that there was a toy in that disadvantaged man's hands. Well, officer, or I don't even know if it's former officer, I guess we'll find out as I read the story. Officer Ayala fired anyway. Let me read you the entire clip that came out of the Miami paper. The award-winning Florida cop who made international headlines last year after shooting an unarmed caretaker who had his hands in the air, then claimed he had feared for his life after confusing a toy truck for a loaded gun, was informed by another cop seconds before the shooting that the object was not a gun but a toy. Now, obviously, something is wrong when a cop tries to bullshit his way through by claiming that a toy truck looked like a gun to him. So either he needs glasses or he should not have pulled his weapon and fired it. Anyway, as the story continues, but North Miami police officer Jonathan Aleda fired anyway, not even striking the autistic man with the truck that he had confused for a gun, but his caretaker, who had already told officers it was not a gun. The man they later claimed they were trying to protect from the toy-wielding autistic man they believed had a gun. However, not only did caretaker Charles Kinsey tell the cops it was not a gun before the shooting, but a North Miami police sergeant who viewed the object through binoculars also confirmed it was a toy truck, telling the other officers to hold their fire. And the officers did hold their fire, except for Aleda, who seconds earlier had told fellow officers he had a clear shot on the subject, so apparently was not going to let that moment pass, even if he had received a direct order not to shoot. What else can we expect from a cop who was hired by North Miami Police in 2012, despite several warning signs that he could become a problem cop because he possessed a lack of tolerance and was also described as being judgmental, argumentative, critical, challenging, rigid, and stubborn? Fortunately, Mr. Kinsey survived the shooting and he is now suing. The stunning but not surprising revelation surfaced this week after the Miami News Times obtained an audio recording of North Miami Police Chief Gary Eugene being interviewed by Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigators 10 days after the July 18, 2016 shooting. The recording is posted below. Chief Eugene, who had been on the job only 6 days when the shooting took place, described an ensuing cover-up between police and North Miami city officials to protect Aleda, who has no business carrying a gun or a badge. However, that interview was not enough for the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office to file charges against Aleda, who has been on paid administrative leave for more than 8 months now, although they insist they are still investigating. And that is not surprising considering Miami-Dade State Attorney Katherine Fernandez Rundle has never filed charges against any cop for on-duty shootings since taking office in 1993, and there have been many. Now, I did a story on this lady before, as far as her not going after cops, but she damn sure likes going after minorities and trying to get maximum charges against them, and especially black males. Her latest questionable decision was made last month when she declined to charge, that's the story I'm referring to, where she declined to charge 4 prison guards who forced a mentally ill inmate into a hot shower for 2 hours, leaving him to die a slow, excruciating, and scalding death, prompting renewed criticism from the New Times, who referred to her as a disgrace in a scathing article last month. So even though prosecutors are promising they will be arriving at a decision any day now, we can predict that they will not file charges against Aleda, who was deemed a potential problem cop when applying for the North Miami Police Department in 2012. He not only had a shoplifting conviction on his record when applying, he was determined to have a lack of tolerance and was also described as being, again, judgmental, argumentative, critical, challenging, rigid, and stubborn. Just the kind of person who would shoot an unarmed man lying on his back with his hands in the air after being told by a commanding officer not to open fire. So, again, here we are, cops operating under different rules, district attorneys that refuse to prosecute cops, even though all the evidence is slapping him dead in the face, and we're supposed to believe that the justice system is equal for all. I don't think so. Now, here is the description of the interview that was given. After the shooting, union officials justified Ayala's action by saying he thought the autistic man with Kenzie had a gun, not a toy truck. But Eugene, that's the chief's, interview with FDLE, I guess that's Florida Department of Law Enforcement, contradicts that claim. This past Tuesday, the North Miami Police Public Information Officer decided to comment on behalf of the city manager, who is Mr. Spring, I believe. It goes as follows. I heard the shooter, Officer Ayala, make a statement to the nature of, "Be advised, I have a clear shot of subject," Eugene said, describing the audio of the police radio just before the shooting. Later on, a sergeant got on the air and said, "I have a visual. It is a toy. It is a toy. QRX. That means stand by, don't do anything." Then there is a conversation back and forth. The next transmission was by another officer saying, "Shot fired." Eugene's description comes in an hour-long interview that centers on the bizarre aftermath of the case. He doesn't pull punches about the state of the department. Eugene, a veteran City of Miami cop who had been sworn in as chief only 6 days before the Kenzie shooting, says training was lax and infighting rampant in his department. The scene was a mess. To be honest with you, he tells investigators of the Kenzie shooting, people were walking all over the place. Thank God Kenzie did not die. I realize I have a problem with the training of my staff. We're talking about some 15 or 16-year veterans, but in North Miami, a 15 or 16-year veteran may have less experience than a 2-year cop in Miami. Fights in the department were so bad, Eugene said, that he worried his cops wouldn't even be willing to protect one another, much less the community. I'm afraid one of them will get shot, for God's sake, and someone will call for backup and they'll say, "I'm not going," just to tell you how much the animosity is, he said. In a previous cell phone clip that was provided to the press, Kenzie was seen on tape lying on his back, repeatedly telling police that Rios was only holding a toy. Rios sat cross-legged next to him. While the video did not show the moment Ayala shot Kenzie, the video does show the cops handcuffing an injured Kenzie as he laid on the ground. Jesus Christ. In his FDLE interview, the chief said the second unseen video was clear enough to show one cop, a rookie, resting with his finger off the trigger of his weapon. That cop was not the officer that shot Kenzie. It was a video taken, pulled back from the second floor of an apartment, Eugene said, because you could clearly see the officer leaning in the engine area and the rookie officer, I was telling you, the black male, it was so clear you could see his finger outside the trigger behind the bush. You could see the black male Kenzie on his back with both hands in the air. The news raises further questions about the controversial Kenzie shooting, which became a flashpoint in the anti-police brutality movement sweeping the nation. Who took the clip, and why and how did the video not make its way to the press in the 8 months since Kenzie was shot? The answer to those questions are obvious. The video was never released because it would contradict their narrative that the autistic man, Armando Rios Santo, appeared threatening and menacing the way he waved his toy truck around to fool officers thinking was a loaded gun. Instead, the video shows a rookie cop with his finger off the trigger, having made the determination that Kenzie was not carrying a gun. But as police are known to do, they quickly spun the story to make themselves look like the victim, as we described last year. The movement of the white individual looked like he was getting ready to discharge a firearm into Mr. Kenzie, said Miami-Dade Police Union boss John Rivera in a press conference today. And the officer discharged, trying to strike and stop the white male, and unfortunately he missed. Yeah, really unfortunate, especially for Mr. Kenzie. Rivera went on to slam the media for reporting on the story. Be responsible in your reporting, Rivera said in the press conference. But it's too much to ask for cops to be responsible in their policing. That's basically the long and the short of it. Police unions will cover for these guys with their last dying breath, because no police officer in their estimation makes a mistake, while there are cemeteries full of the mistakes that they've made. Just letting you folks know, hopefully, and thank God Mr. Kenzie survived, and hopefully he will get a nice settlement, and more than hopefully Mr. Ayala is kicked off that police force. I have no doubt that this guy is not going to be prosecuted by that bullshit district attorney, but maybe, just maybe, they'll strip his law enforcement credentials so he can't get another job anyplace else as a police officer.